Yeah, I mean, I call that the golden rule. Take the fault, feel the opposite. Because if you
Yeah.
do that, it will work you towards neutral always. So people are like, oh, well, what if I overdo it? It's like, well, if you overdo it, the rule still applies. Like, say, for example, you come out next season and you're slicing it. Well, you just take the fault and feel the opposite. You feel more of a hooky swing until it balances itself again. We just have to understand that feel is not real.
How low can you go?
Welcome back once again to the How Low Can You Go Golf Improvement Podcast. We've got another really, really great episode lined up today. We are welcoming Adam Young, top instructor who has some really, really interesting angles looking at how golfers can improve. He is the co-host of The Sweet Spot, a show that we have referenced and we've talked about quite a few times on this show. He hosts that with John Sherman, and he is also the author of a best-selling book, The Practice Manual, and it is just so well researched and essential for anyone who wants to get better. So Adam Young, it is a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to How Low Can You Go?
It's a pleasure to be on. I'm glad to talk your ear off about golf.
Well, we like doing that, don't we, Chris?
Yes, we do indeed. Yeah, we're very happy to have you on the podcast. So, Dave, take it away.
Yeah, no, as I mentioned earlier, so Adam, you have made a real name for yourself. I think, would it be fair to say that you've carved out this kind of niche almost? You're a little bit of an alternative coach in that you've pretty much dismissed the idea that people should be pushed into particular models or that swings have to look a certain way. You've really kind of boiled your coaching philosophy down to what you call the big three, these kind of strike, impact fundamentals and building skills around those. Do you mind just sharing a bit about your background and how you have evolved as a coach and came to this? Because you've been getting really good results with players by kind of almost simplifying it.
Yeah, I definitely get results with players. Yeah, I can get someone in and add X yards to their game and straighten them out very, very quickly and usually very simply as well, without, as you said, without having to go the route of changing their swing a massive amount. Sometimes a player will leave looking the same on camera, but their ball is flying farther and straighter, and so you have to say, well, why? And so, my evolution as a coach is interesting, right? Most coaches come into the game and they don't know much about the swing. They were good players at some point, and lots of good players don't even know how their own swing works. They beat balls as a young kid and they got good at it. And then they learn how the swing works after. I was a little the opposite because I started golf at age 15 and I'm super analytical. I've always been that way. I hate the cliche of, I was breaking my toys apart to find out how they work, but that's who I was.
Yeah.
And so, when I was learning golf at 15, the first thing I did was get every single book out of the library. So, I got Ledbetter's books out. I got Faldo's books out. It was all about models and how, piece by piece by piece. And I loved that. I would spend hours in the mirror just checking out, putting myself in certain positions. And I got better because I was practicing so much. I mean, my parents would drop me off at the golf course at age 15. I was getting dropped off at like 7 o'clock in the morning and picked up at 10 o'clock at night. So I was practicing a lot. So it's hard not to get good then. And I don't think models are not they're not to be thrown out, right? It's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but we can follow them so closely that we can shoot ourselves in the foot at the same time. And I think I got to the point where I was trying to make my swing. I was trying to force myself into a certain look, Tiger's look, and my body just couldn't do it. In fact, I actually tore a rotor cuff trying to put myself into Tiger's arm position. I made a belt. I saw Hogan's book and the arms strapped together. So I put a belt. I made an figure eight loop and strapped my arms together. And the first swing I took, my freaking rotor cuff, I got a micro tear in it, so I was out for a few weeks. So I mean, there's a lesson in itself. We sometimes try and copy models where our body can't actually physically do. So yeah, I started very analytical. When I then went into instruction, I was like, this is going to be so easy. All I have to do is like swing by numbers, right? I just give people, okay, this is position 1, position 2, position 3. I can create hundreds of lessons on that stuff. And I quickly found it didn't work. I would put people in certain positions and they wouldn't get better. And when you're a 20, what was I, like 22 when I started coaching, and I looked super young. And so people have a hard time trusting you. So if you don't get results like that, they're gone. And I can't put food on the table. So, I'd be putting people through positions. They wouldn't get better. In my head, I'm like, well, this is the right thing to do. They're going to get better long term. But even the ones who stuck with me didn't really get better. So I had to quickly pivot. And luckily, one of the first jobs that I moved to about a year into coaching was the Cranfield Golf Academy. In fact, I don't even know. I think he's got a few academies still left in Britain. And it was more about like how to teach and a more instinctive approach. And so that was really good for me because it tested my current beliefs on it. Like my beliefs at that time was it was all about positions. And they were doing things like they'd have a ball with a nail through it, and then they just angle it in different directions. And so I would be looking at this player going over the top, and I would be writing down all these notes of what I would do with the player. This is when I was kind of shadowing, observing the other coaches. I'd be writing notes saying, right, I would change his hip motion, I would change his setup, I'd change this. The other coach would just put a ball with a nail down through it and achieve like 10 years of changes like that. And I'd be like, oh,
A literal
wow.
nail, like a physical nail, like right through the
Yeah.
ball. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got one here somewhere. It's on the floor. Yeah, I've got a ball with a nail driven through it. But you can just visualize it. You don't
Yeah, of
actually
course.
have to have a nail through it. It's just the concept. If they had someone who was topping it, again, I would be looking at, okay, well, their arms are folding, their legs are jumping up too quickly, they're raising up in the backswing, and they might do something like put a penny on the floor or a guitar pick on the floor and just say, right, I want you to try and hit that, and we're going to make a game out of it. And so I basically took that idea and I just ran with it, and it worked. And not only did it work, but it worked long term as well. Because that was the initial thing is I'm like, okay, well, this stuff's working, but it's never going to work long term. They're going to come back next week with the same faults. But I found they didn't. They come back and they're like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm not topping it anymore. Let's move on to the next thing. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like this is completely challenging my beliefs. So like I said, I went straight down into that rabbit hole. And then I actually took I don't want to say a step back, but I went from this super analytical coach to now being super instinctive and having these great results. And then I went to work for David Ledbetter academies and IMG academies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I say a step back because they were super technical again. It was straight back to everybody has to swing a model in a model way. And it's great. I love David. I think what he's done in terms of models, I think David Ledbetter's model in the Golf Swing book is like the best out there. It's a great model to follow. It's a good blueprint to have. It's a great thing to work off. And even David himself has done books on, one of my favorite books of his was, I can't remember exactly. I should know, right, if it's my favorite book. It was about how different pros have different swings and how different pros' swings work. And so I loved that because it's like, okay, well, why does Furyk's swing work then? Why does Matt Wolf's swing work? Why did Ray Floyd and Nancy Lopez suck it inside? Why did Bruce Litsky come over the top? How can Bubba change the swing? How can Bubba's feet be in the air as he's hitting the ball and still? And so, I kind of developed this philosophy of, well, what really truly matters in golf? And I knew it was the physics of impact. This is an undeniable thing, right? It's the physics of impact that creates the outcome. So then I asked the question, well, what is it? What things are we trying to achieve at impact? And by the way, when I say impact, lots of people think, oh, what my body position should be at impact. Do I need to be open? Do my hands need to be here? And yeah, those things are important. But again, I'm actually talking about the club and ball interaction.
Yeah.
And the impact interval, the most important part of the golf swing, is about half an inch where the club is connected to the ball. And so I started to develop a philosophy where, well, hey, if we just get that right, does it matter how we swing? And so I started to do all these different experiments where I'd say, right, I'm going to swing in a stupid way, like just swing it over my head, take silly grips, but I'm going to get impact correct. And what I found was the ball flew amazingly. Now, that's not to say go out and make the silliest swing you can, but it's just to say if you satisfy impact, the ball will fly exactly how you want it to. So as I started to, research or look into impact, I found, well, okay, you have to hit close to the center of the face, right? Or you should hit close to the center of the face, I should say. There are some pros
Mm.
who are slightly heel or toe biased. It should be pretty consistent, but most pros are going to be hitting very close to the center of the face. You also have to contact the ground in the right place, which I could probably talk a full 5 hours about. So, with an iron, it should be ball first, then turf contact, or ball and turf together.
Yeah. And just quickly on that, Adam,
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
I said this on one of our previous podcasts, Chris, that I think I only realized that relatively recently in the last few years that is so
Uh-huh.
key to good ball striking. And I think, Adam, so many people just don't have the right concept. I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's intuitive. They feel like they've got to try and lift it. I used to think I had to sort of just get the club underneath the ball and sort of swish underneath and maybe
Mhm.
just brush the ground before the ball and then send it. So I guess my point is, I think conceptually, so many people don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, the first things I used to do in lessons is ask them, do you think you should hit the ground at all? And they'd either say yes or no.
Mhm.
It would surprise you how many people say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or lots of people, lots of beginners would say, no, if you hit the ground, it's a fat shot. Because that's their experience, right? Oh, whenever I take a divot, the ball goes nowhere. So then, if that's their concept, whether on a conscious or unconscious level, they're going to try and avoid the ground.
And
Mm.
how do you
Yeah.
strip that back? If you've got someone that's came into you for a lesson and you're talking to them about impact, like you were saying, do you say it was an inch before the ball? Do you say that? How do you then get them if they have that swing that's totally different from your kind of like what would look like a structured swing? How do you then get them strip it back to someone that doesn't understand how do I get impact the correct way once I get to the ball, if that makes sense?
Well, here's the interesting thing that I've found is that we all intuitively understand how to contact a spot on the ground.
Yeah.
It's just so what I'm looking at is like the first thing is, does the player have the right concept? This is the first
Mm.
level. It's like, do you know that you should hit the ground, number one, and do you know where it should be? If they don't, then I'm talking them through that. I'm asking them questions. I maybe even demonstrate. One thing I would
Okay.
do in a lesson, say a player says, okay, yeah, you should hit the ground, but I don't know where. What I'll do is I'll spray a line on the grass, I'll place a ball on top, and I'll say, well, watch these 3 shots. And I'll miss the ground and blade it, and they'll see the result. And I'll say, so look at that result, look at the ground contact or lack thereof. And they go, okay, yeah, so if you miss the ground, it's going to be a thin shot. Okay. Then the next one, I'll hit the ground, I'll hit 2 inches behind it, and it'll go nowhere. And then the next one, I'll take a huge chunky divot, but it'll be ball, then divot. And the ball will fly off, it'll fizz, and they'll go, wow, that sounded great. And I'll say, yeah, look at the ground. And they go, huh, okay, so you did take a divot.
Mm.
It was just on that line or even slightly in front of it. So I don't actually have to tell someone. It's the Socratic
Okay.
method, right? You're showing them or asking them questions so they come up with the right answer. Because I found, that's another thing in instruction. You can tell someone something 10 times, but if they figure it out for themselves once, that's better learning. So
Mm.
yeah, the first thing is the concept, right? Okay, now they have the concept, they understand. The next thing is, well, let's get some feedback on what you are actually doing. So again, I might spray a line on the ground and get them to hit shots, and then we analyze the results. Or one thing I used to do is get an old golf club, and I used to go onto the concrete slab next to the driving range, the concrete pavement, and I would draw a little dot on with marker pen onto the floor, and I'd say, try and hit that spot for me. And they'd make a swing, and you'd see a little spark as the club connects with the ground, and you'd also see a chip in the pavement. And they'd see the first time they did it, it'd be this far behind, or
Yeah.
they'd miss the ground completely. And I would say, have another go.
Sounds like it could be quite painful.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I would say to them, hit the concrete, but don't hurt yourself. And we wouldn't
Mm.
spend a ton of time doing this.
Don't hit a bucket of balls off the concrete.
Yeah. You actually can. You could hit some good shots off the concrete. It's a really good thing because if you hit the ground early, it'll bounce up and you'll top it. So you very quickly learn, right? I got to hit really close to that spot. But the interesting thing is actually a drill in itself, because if you're going super mechanical, a good golf swing has the hands working up and away from the ground as the club is connecting with it. So people kind of intuitively will do more of that motion. So it actually self-organizes the motion as well, a good motion. But now I have something called a divot board. I don't know if you've ever seen that device. It's a it's a
Shows you
board
the
with sequins on it. I've got one
Yeah.
here. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I got one right here.
And yeah, you have plugged this a lot, and I think that actually means this must work, because I think I've heard you before, Adam, say that you very rarely will plug any training aid, and you get offered training aids to endorse quite regularly. But this one you definitely do endorse. And I've heard Carl Morris, who was on recently, he, I think on one of his podcasts, said he thinks it's the best training aid that's ever been invented.
Yeah, I would say so. It's basically the concrete drill without hurting your hands or damaging your club. And you can do it indoors as well. You can do it without a golf ball. So that's what I like about it. There are other ways of getting feedback on ground contact without using a divot board as well. Some very simple ways that I can discuss.
And you can take that to the driving range with you, right?
Yeah, you can.
And hit balls from it.
I mean, ideally, if you've got a grass driving range, I would use that. But if you're on a mat, and here's the thing, right? For those practicing this winter, you actually get rewarded for a fat shot on a driving range mat. And what I mean by that is if you hit an inch behind it, the club actually bounces up a little bit and you get this super solid feeling at impact because it actually reduces what we call spin loft. It feels like the ball is more compressed and the ball will actually launch higher with lower spin and it'll even go farther. So we get rewarded for 1 to 2 inch fat shots on a range. And actually a ball first strike actually almost feels slightly worse. Lots of people say, oh, that felt thin to me.
Could that be detrimental to when it comes to the season and then you then take it to the course?
Yeah. I see lots of players, they spend lots of time practicing on mats, then they get out on the golf course, fat. And they're like, I don't understand it. I was hitting it well on the mat. It's like, yeah. But there are ways, the divot board is a way of not getting away with that. Because if you hit 2 inches behind on a divot board, it'll still feel good, but you'll look down and you'll see, that was 2 inches behind. Okay, it wasn't good. So it stops you getting away with it. You can also look at vertical contact on the face. So you could get Dr. Scholl's foot spray, or in the UK, Dactarin. Just a light spray on the face, doesn't have to cake it on, just like that. And then when you hit a ball, you'll leave an imprint. And what I look for is it to be between the 3rd and the 5th groove on the face. So just take the very center of that circle, 3rd to 5th groove. It's not a perfect science, but it is a very good proxy for ground contact. If it's too low on the face, obviously you've had too thin contact with the ground, or you could say the ground contact's been too far forwards. If it's too high on the face, the only way you can hit it too high on the face is to hit the ground early. You could argue, if you lean the shaft forwards, it'll be higher on the face, but no one accidentally leans the shaft forwards 20 degrees more than normal. If you hit, and I've actually done the geometry on this, for every groove higher you hit on the face, it would take 10 degrees of forward shaft lean to do that, which no one ever does that. No one accidentally ever adds that. But people do drop in deeper a groove height. And so a lot of this is depth control, right? You go in deeper, you hit higher on the face, and ground contact will also be farther back. You come in a little higher, take a smaller divot, a thinner divot, and it's going to be lower on the face, and ground contact will move forwards. These things are all like tied in together geometrically.
I love the foot spray. Yeah, Chris. How often do I have the foot spray out with me on the course?
Yeah, Dave's done every drive. He's used the foot spray just to see, because you were working on your driving at one point where all he used on every tee was the foot spray to just know where he was at, where it hit on the face of the club. So yeah, he's a big advocate for the foot spray.
Yeah. Speaking of good training aids,
Yeah, most people look at toe and heel with that, which is great, but also most people miss out, especially with irons, is the vertical contact, like which groove you hit. And like I said, it's super important. I can almost tell how many inches behind the ball someone's hit just by them showing me which groove they've struck on the
Wow.
face. So yeah, it's a very good training aid. But that's the thing. So first you got a concept, like where should you hit on the face? Most people have that down. Like if you ask them, okay, where should you hit in the face? They'll point at the right area. If you ask them where should you hit vertically, that's where they might get it wrong. And that ties into ground contact. Because a good thing that I do in lessons is I Google Tiger Woods iron
Mm-hmm.
rest mark. And so it shows
Classic.
basically an iron that I think is Tiger Woods' 8 iron that he practiced with a lot. And you see a little rest or wear mark on the club face. And when I show people that, they're like, whoa, that's super low on the face. I thought that was a thin shot. I thought it should be on the middle of the face. So you can imagine if a player goes off practicing hitting the middle of the face, like groove 6 or 7, they're effectively training in a fat shot without realizing it. And like I said, on a mat, that would feel okay.
You can give anecdotal evidence that happens because I spent one winter, a couple of winters ago, thinking, oh, look at how well I'm striking this on the face. But it was so high on the face. And then I got to the course and hitting a lot of fat shots, which has always been my tendency. It's getting a little bit better, but definitely my tendency has to be to hit it fat. But I think to your point is, yes, get it out of the middle of the club, but that's not like anywhere in the middle. You want to try and get it down. And looking at that Tiger Woods picture is such an eye opener. Like whenever I saw that, I was like, whoa, that is lower. As you say, that is lower than I expected.
Yeah, middle of the face, toe to heel, but low on the face vertically. That's what I say to people. It's not the real center of the club that we're trying to go for. So yeah, understanding these things is one thing. The next stage is then get feedback as to what you're doing. Like I said, the concrete drill or divot board drill or foot spray, they're all that will highlight what you're actually doing. Those 2 steps alone, if that's all you did, you will improve with that. But the next thing is then that I would add tools to people. And what I mean by that is it could be something super instinctive. So this is how I learned about differential practice. And when I found it out, I didn't even know it was called differential practice. But say I took that person who's hitting 6 inches behind it on the divot board or the concrete, I would leave them for maybe 5-10 swings trying to hit that spot. And you'd see they would get better. And then they kind of stop, after maybe a session or so, or 5 minutes, they would get like half the distance from it. So 50% improvement. But what I found was if I said to that person, I'd say, just entertain me for a moment. I want you to hit a foot in front of that spot. So I want you to set up on the spot, swing back, but I want you to hit a foot in front of the spot. Now, not everybody would hit a foot in front, but they would all move it forwards. And so what that taught me is everybody instinctively, even beginners, have the ability to move this strike around. It's just something they haven't refined yet. So then I'd say, okay, hit a foot in front. Hit 6 inches in front, hit 4 inches in front, hit 3 inches, hit 2 inches. And we'd eventually find a spot or we'd find an intention for them that would allow them to hit this spot. So most people initially would walk away saying, in order to hit that spot, I have to think of hitting 2 inches in front of it. And I'd say, yeah, for the next week, month, year, or whatever, that's your thought. If you want to strike the ball effectively, you're going to have to do that. I also found that if I wanted to change heel or toe strikes with people, so when I did that concrete drill, a shanker would hit the ground farther away from them, and a toe bias player would hit the spot or the concrete closer to their feet. And so I could kind of triangulate this. I could fix both fat shots, thin shots, or toe or heel just by giving them one spot to focus on. So say it was a shanker, I would say, right, I want you to hit a spot closer to you. So I would draw like an X on the ground and I'd say, right, I want you to hit it your side of the X. And I also want you to make it far enough forwards that you get as close to that X as possible. And so I could fix 2 things with one thought. I could even, if they were an over the top player, I could draw a little direction on that spot, and I could say, right, I want like a mini nail on the ground. I want you to hammer that spot to the right. And then the interesting thing is all of a sudden they're hammering that spot to the right. They're getting ground contact, base contact, and their path is now changing. So now they're able to go from a massive slice to a less of a slice or a draw even. And what I found then is, right there, their motion has changed as well. So I'd look at their swing on video and I'd say, even their sequencing, even their movement of their hips and how their arms move, the club shaft movement has all changed. And I haven't told them anything about that. So that was a concept I wrote in the book about self-organization. So self-organization means, like, organization would be me telling them, move your body, move your hips this way, and they're thinking about it. Self-organization would be me giving them a task and having the movement improve for free. So I started to develop all these different tasks that I could change 3, 4, 5, 10 things if you include the body motion with just one intention from a player. And this, I suppose this goes against the golf industry in that golf industry is generally organizational, right? You've got to think about moving your body this way, and that can be part of your improvement. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I found that this approach that I developed was far more effective, more natural, I feel, because it's how we learn everything else as well. If you throw a ball to someone or you're trying to throw a ball into a bucket, you're not thinking of arm motion, you're thinking of the outcome. The arm motion generally improves as you get better at it,
Yeah.
at the task itself. So
Yeah, we've heard that
Yeah.
recently when we went and played golf down in London. It was the concept of, like, if I throw something over at that table, you don't think about it. Whereas in golf, we're constantly thinking, right, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, like you said, you're not thinking of the outcome, which is so much more simplified, essentially. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally understand what you're saying.
And do you find, Adam, you get better results and lasting results with the task focus with students?
as long as it's gone through those steps, right? So understand the concept first. If the person doesn't understand the concept, they'll go away and they'll revert back. So that's another thing I found is, say I took a player who's hitting ground early, and I forced them and I said, right, you got to really shift your weight forwards. Even if in that lesson they improved ground contact, they would come back next week with a new fault. Maybe they'd then cast it earlier or something like that. They'd find a new way of getting the old impact because their concept was faulty.
And how does your philosophy change between, say, I'm a 2 handicapper and Dave's a 15 handicapper? How does your
Chris,
philosophy
14 now, come on.
14, sorry. How does your philosophy change between a 2 handicapper and a 14 handicapper when it comes to basically teaching this? Like, say, for example, how do you find that there's a difference between the two? Do you find, like, the lower handicapper understands it much quicker, and the 15 handicapper, there's a longer kind of, like, getting them to understand that concept? Like, how do you find that when you're coaching?
Honestly, it doesn't change. This is the beauty of my philosophy.
Really?
You could put Tiger Woods in front of me in his peak, and you could put a relatively beginner in front of me, and the philosophy is still the same. What I would say is, it's the goal, right? We're all trying to hit the dartboard, right? Or we're trying to hit, let's just say, the bullseye. I know there's treble 20s higher, but we're trying to hit the bullseye. It's just like, how far away are you from that? So Tiger Woods is not going to be very far away from it. They're going to need small refinements, whereas a beginner is going to be much farther away. You might be trying to get them to hit the board. So it's the same idea. It's the same path that I see for everybody. And yeah, we've got to satisfy impact, right? No matter who you are. And this is why you can get such vast array of different swings on tour. Tiger Woods and Jim Furyk look very different. Scheffler and Tiger look very different. You can take the top 10 and they all look very different. It's not to say they don't have similarities. People often say, when you say to people, oh yeah, the pros look different, they say, oh, so anything goes then. It's not that case, but you can swing many different ways to achieve impact. And what I found is, once you get impact satisfied, usually the swing looks good anyway. But it's unique to you. Scheffler is going to look different to Furyk. It's unique to you, but they're both satisfying impact. It's just a slightly different vehicle. Like, you can't. So there are certain things that impact. There are actually 7 laws of impact. I know this is where it starts to sound like it's complicated, right? But I'll simplify it down. But I like, this is why we call the podcast the sweet spot, our podcast, because we like to go off in different directions, explore the scale, but then come back and zone in on, okay, well, what's the simplicity of that now? Now we've got all that information, come back to simplicity. So ground contact is important, right? We discussed that. Ball first contact with irons, with shots off the deck, not with your putter.
And not with the driver, right? Not with the driver either.
Not with the driver either. We don't want ground contact there. Face contact is important. So where you hit on the face, not too much toe, not too much heel. Face direction is another big one. Right. So those are what's called my big three. So if you get those three, it's gonna be a good shot. Okay. So those are the things that I focus on. And in fact, like I said, with triangulating ground contact and face contact, ground contact and face contact could be one in itself. You could lump those two together, and it's just about whether you hit the ground forwards or back, or farther away from you or closer. So really, it's the big two. It's ground contact and face direction. Now we start to also add on, there's certain things that can optimize the results a little bit. So path is one of them. This path is the direction the club is moving through impact. So we've all heard of out to in or in to out.
Yep.
If you tend to hook, draw and push your balls, if that's your pattern, then your path is in to out. If you are a pull, fade, and slicer, your path is out to in. Now, people obsess over that. They think that's the key to improvement. Not really. You can play really good golf with a path that's offline, out to in, into out. You can play really good golf with that. I wouldn't be too extreme with it just because it's inefficient. Like if you're cutting across at 10 degrees, you're going to be losing distance, and distance matters as much as people like to think it doesn't. Distance matters as well. So path is there. Path is important. Path determines basically the curvature or curvature patterns that you have. Speed is important as well. All else being equal, someone with faster speed is going to be a better player. Again, people think it's not important, but it is. Speed determines a lot of how far the ball goes.
Yeah. Like the closer you get the ball to the green off the tee, the game's going to get easier. There's no doubt about that.
There's even math behind it. I mean, Brody has said that for an amateur, for every 20 yards you gain, you knock off 0.2 of a shot every time you do that. So if you drive, so 0.2 of a shot is like, who cares about that? But if you hit a driver 15 times in a round, that's 3 shots for every 20 yards you gain. If you gain 40 yards, you've knocked off 6 shots off your score. Why? Because it's easier hitting a wedge than it is a 7-iron. Even from the rough sometimes, I'd rather hit a wedge from a rough than a 5-wood from the fairway. So distance matters. Yeah. And even like if your face angle, which determines direction, is a big determinant of direction. If your face angle is off by 2 degrees, if you're doing that with a wedge versus a hybrid, the ball will go more offline with the hybrid than it will the wedge. So it's easier to keep the direction straighter if you're going in with a shorter club.
And would you say that comes down to doing a lot of speed training then? Then say like, for example, with Dave and I, like Dave's speed, say for example, with our drive and I hit the ball, maybe we've talked about this before, like 30 yards further than you, Dave, like because I'm a fat, like I swing faster.
Don't rub it in, Chris.
He's probably going after you today, Dave.
But he done it on the last one, so I'm getting on this one. But
I'm well used to it.
How do we get Dave? Is it mainly speed training that we need to work on? Say for anybody needs to work with speed training, like to get like longer. But for Dave to gain those yardages on me and shots, if that makes sense. How does he do that?
There's so many factors that go into speed. A lot of it is genetics. Like I've taught 13-year-old kids who pick up a club and the first time they swing it, they're swinging faster than me as a pro who's got like hundreds of thousands. So it happens. My genetics are awful for golf. I mean, I'm short short in height, and I just, even if I'm like throwing a ball, I'm great for long distance running, but my genetics for power is really poor. Lots of people say, weight train for speed. I'm sure for a lot of people that works, but when I was 15, I was 110 pounds and I swung the club 100 mile an hour. I then, in university, I bulked up. I learned how to eat protein, eat loads of calories, hit the gym every day, and I added 60 pounds, and my swing speed was 101 mile an hour. So it didn't go. It just didn't move. I believe speed training is probably one of the best ways of going about it. It's not my area of expertise, so I would
Mm.
leave that to other guys. But there are lots of things like the stack system, the rip sticks, super speed sticks, all those things. It's just basically about getting a stick that has slightly different weights on it, and you swing them as fast as you can. I think the intention to swing as fast as you can is going to increase your speed. Now, are there some downsides to that? Yes, you can start to self-organize towards less control. So you
Mm.
have to balance this with a lot of, ground contact work still. So, if you swing at 10 mile an hour, but you hit the bottom groove, you're not going to get more distance on it, or
No.
maybe you send it over the green. If you hit 3 inches behind it with 10, 20 mile an hour faster speed, it's not going to go farther. So you still have to satisfy the other areas of impact. That's why I don't put
Okay,
speed as like top priority. It's not in my big
got you.
three, but it's an important thing. It's more of a, once you've got the big three in place, now we can focus on adding these other ones.
Yeah. Got you.
And then it's the other two are attack angle and dynamic loft. So attack angle is, are you hitting down on the ball? Are you hitting level, or are you hitting up on the ball? With irons, we want that club to be moving down at impact some amount. I never really tell people to hit down on it, but I do tell people hit the ground in the right place, and that actually takes care of that one. If they're hitting the
Yeah.
ground in the right place, usually attack angle's pretty good.
It's become another one of those big kind of cliche ones that are doing the rounds a lot these days, is hit down on it with irons. And I think, to your point, that can
Yeah.
sometimes cause a few problems as well, right?
Yeah, because the intention to hit down on it can sometimes make people like shove their body down towards the ball, and it can cause problems that way. If I need to steepen someone's attack angle, if I need them to get that club working down more, I actually tell them to hit more forwards. I tell them to hit the ground more forwards. We get the low point of the swing more forwards, and that makes a steeper attack angle. So kind of complicated there, probably hard to visualize for most people, but it's usually not something to obsess over really for most people just yet. You don't want to be hitting up on an iron. So we make
Mm.
sure the concept is in place. Like you said earlier, Dave, about, most beginners think I have to get under and lift up on it.
Yeah.
So, but again, once you satisfy ground contact, usually that stuff goes away.
Yes.
They're not scooping. You can't hit that ground in the right place and scoop up on it. It's
Yeah.
impossible. The geometry doesn't work.
I'll tell you a quick anecdote about that. So at Christmas up here in Edinburgh, my brother and his family came to stay with us, and I took him and my nephew, his son, out out onto the golf course on Boxing Day. He's not a golfer, so it was almost like playing with a beginner, and I could see him hitting it really fat all the time. And let me just be clear here: I am not one for giving unsolicited advice to anybody,
I
because
was
I
about to
actually
say
think
that's
that is
how
a
I
curse
feel
in the
playing
game.
with
There's
you.
probably there's probably a whole episode we could do talking about unsolicited advice in golf from amateurs and mid-handicappers like me. However, having listened to you a lot, Adam, and hearing how you train a lot of this stuff with students, I thought I'm going to try and do a bit of an Adam Young impression here with my brother. So I just said to him, look, I just pointed to a spot like that was way, way in front of the ball, because I knew he was hitting so far behind it. And I said, right, just try and sort of just clip that little spot on the ground way in front of the ball this time, just whenever you're hitting your shot. And he absolutely pured it. I was
Yeah.
thinking, here, I should go into coaching here. But just, I think it's just an interesting kind of demonstration of how just getting that shift in concept and almost exaggerating it like what you do can sometimes produce good results.
Well, that's the thing. When initially someone's going to be way off, the higher the handicap, the more off they are usually. And what I mean by that is, even if you told them, right, hit the ground here, they might still hit 6 inches behind. So I call that difference intention action coupling. It's just a scientific word for the difference between what you want and what you had, right? And
Yeah.
most people think, I'm hitting it 6 inches behind. That's a disaster. What am I doing wrong? I don't even ask that question. I just say, keep practicing with feedback. And what you
Yeah.
find is that intention action coupling gets closer and closer over time. So if you tried again next day, you might find your average is only 4 inches behind. You try next day, it's only 2 inches behind. So it actually changes. Sometimes it can even go the other side. From day to day, it changes. Even at my level, with all the reps that I have and everything I know, what I'm trying to do and what I'm actually doing is in constant flux. And this is why golf is so difficult. But the way around that, the way to stabilize that is through, number one, understanding what's happening, and number two, having good feedback on it, and then the third stage is having tools to change it. So like the number one tool everybody should develop is take the fault and feel the opposite, or intend the opposite. If you're hitting too far behind it, learn how to hit more in front of it. And if you don't know how to do that, do the concrete drill until you figure out, this is what it feels like to hit 6 inches in front.
Yeah.
If your shots are going left, figure out what it takes to make the ball go more right. Understand the
Chris.
concept. The face is the biggest thing. And then learn, okay, this is how I hit it 10 yards right, 20 yards right, 30 yards right. Okay, I got a feel for that. Now let's do 10 yards left, 20 yards left, 30 yards left. Okay, I got a feel for that. So now when you're ever in a situation where it's like, my ball's going left, it's like, okay, well, I know it's the club face. And now I know, okay, I know the feels to be able to change that. And I also have almost like this gear system of, it's going 20 yards left today. Let's do a few practice swings for feeling like it's going 20 yards right. And then that'll straighten it out. It's basically how I play all my golf. Like I got down to +3 last year, practicing very little, just by literally taking the fault and feeling the opposite. If my strike was toey one day, I would just go out and I'd say, right, I'm going to try and hit it more from the heel today. And I'd be flushing it. Again, feel is not real. Go on, Chris.
Yeah.
You look excited.
Yeah, Chris,
No,
I think Chris is very excited because this is something you've been doing, Chris, right?
that literally what you've just said there. So my last season, it was the worst season I had because I had a dose of the duck hooks. And normally I'm a very feel player. Like I can, like you said, if I'm hooking the ball, then I'm like, right, okay, I can do little changes that then all of a sudden I'm not hooking the ball. But for some reason last season, I just couldn't fix it. I just couldn't, and I didn't even think of what you've just said of if I'm hooking the ball, feel like I'm like almost coming over the top more and fading it instead of being on the inside. Dave and I over the winter so far I've started coming basically feeling like I'm playing a slice and I'm just bringing it in. And it's totally changed my game. That hook, I don't have a hook in my game anymore. And it was that simple of just like doing the opposite of what's going wrong. So what you've just said there is brilliant advice because it's helped me. And honestly, my confidence had just went down the drain and all I needed to do was just do the opposite. And I know that sounds very easy for someone maybe from my point of view because I know all the different bits to like how I need to change that. But it is such a simple thing if people try and do it. It is such a simple thing. It has changed my game again, and I feel more confident because I just changed that, massively done the opposite, if that makes sense.
Chris did the classic thing, Adam. Sorry to jump in, but yeah,
right.
Chris did the classic thing where he had this big issue during the season, and then he fixed it right at the end of the season. Right at the end of the season, he started playing some seriously good golf, and now up in Edinburgh, we can't even put cards in anymore while it's winter because it's all like temporary greens and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I call that the golden rule. Take the fault, feel the opposite. Because if you do that, it will work you towards neutral always. So people are like, oh, what if I overdo it? It's like, well, if you overdo it, the rule still applies. Like, say, for example, you come out next season and you're slicing it. Well, you just take the fault and feel the opposite. You feel more of a hooky swing until it balances itself again. We just have to understand that feel is not real. So like when you went from hooking it to feeling as if you're slicing it, you probably didn't put a slice swing on it. You just got closer to neutral. And, I suffer with hooks as well. I rarely slice it. So my bad shot, everybody suffers with something, right? There's no golfer out there who doesn't
Oh,
suffer
yeah.
with something. So my patterns are when I'm playing bad, when I'm tired, hungry, cranky, didn't sleep well, whatever. It's left, usually it's a hook, and it's toey and it's fat. So I know those are my patterns. I just have to manage them. I'm constantly monitoring those things. After every shot, I'm like, right, where did I strike on the face? Where did I strike the ground? What was the direction of the shot? Now, if the shot was fine, which maybe 10-20% of shots are fine. Every shot can be improved, but if it's fine, I'm okay. I try and repeat it. But I'm constantly monitoring. I'm like, you know what? That last one was a little toey. It fell a little short. Maybe that toe pattern is coming in and ramping up. I better place my concentration on trying to heal it more. Now, when I say trying to heal it, the goal is not actually to hit the heel, but my intention is to hit the heel in order to drag the pattern back to the center. Right? Just like in ground contact. If I ask someone if they're hitting 6 inches behind and I say, well, try and hit 6 inches in front, the goal is not actually for them to hit 6 inches in front. It's to move that pattern towards the right area. So feel is not real and we just have to monitor. So I play some of my best golf when I've got a horrible pattern. I could be on the range one morning, duck hooking it left, and then I say, right, I got to go out and really focus on, like Chris said, slicing it today, feeling as if I'm coming more outside and with an open face. Usually I just focus on the face when I'm playing. And so I might be standing there hitting these laser straight shots. But if you asked me what I'm feeling, I would say I'm trying to present that face wide open here. I've done an entire article on that. I called it The Secret Behind Straight Shots. And, the reason why I wrote that article is because I was hitting balls demonstrating for beginners. And I say, what do you see? And they're like, well, every shot's straight. And I said, well, let me verbalize what I'm going through. And I hit a shot and it was just slightly left. And I said, right, that was left. I'm going to try and open the face a little bit more for the next one. I hit another shot. It was slightly right. And I said, right, I'm just going to try and go somewhere in between those. I overdid it. Then I hit another shot and it went straighter. And I said, right, I'm going to try and lock on to that for as long as possible. So they see straight shots. What they don't see is my internal dialogue of I'm calibrating. I'm saying, oh, that was left. I got to do the opposite. That was too far right. I got to do the opposite. And finding that in between is this constant. It's the game within the game, really. It never ends that. Some days you're going to be more balanced than others and you don't have to think about something. Like some days I wake up and there's no toe pattern there. Everything's out of the center. And I'm like, great, I don't have to think about it that day. Some days the balls go in straight. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can focus on ground contact today. So but there's usually, I'd say 99 times out of 100, there's something that could be refined and calibrated in the impact intervals.
And what do you think? It was just a question of, say, for example, you're playing a draw that day, but you normally play a fade, right? What do you think of the concept of, well, just aim a little bit more right today?
Yeah, that's an intervention you make. I actually test this with players. So I will give them. See, one of the differences with me as well is I'm not necessarily trying to perfect a player, but I'm trying to develop their tools, right? So every player I have, I'm trying to develop. What is your ability to move the strike more towards the toe and more towards the heel? I can actually quantify this because I've got a GC quad, so it measures the millimeter. So I can ask a player, I want you to hit it 10 millimeters off the toe. And then I'll see how far away they are from that. I've got good players who can get within like 3 millimeters of, I can ask them anywhere on the face and they can get within 3 millimeters of it. So that player has very good tools. I don't care how they do that. I'll actually test things with them. So say, for example, in direction, I ask players, what is your ability to hit the ball more right and left? So I might set them a target like line up towards a target. And as they're lining up, I'll say, right, I want this one to go 10 yards right. And they make their swing. Then they line up again, they take their grip, and I say, right, I want this next one to go 15 yards left, and they hit their shot. And then I quantify the difference as well. So if I say, right, I wanted this 15 left, and they hit it 20 left, I'll say, okay, that was a -5 then. You hit -5, which is actually a very good score. If you can hit within 5 yards of your target, you're excellent. a beginner, the first time someone does that, they might hit it the complete opposite direction, which shows me they don't have the tools yet. And then we
Yeah.
go into developing the tools. Like we go through, okay, well, do you know what creates the direction? And then we go through, okay, well, we have these options now. So as Chris was saying, if you want to hit it more left, for example, say your ball's going to the right today, and that's unusual for you. If you want to hit it more left, I'll say, right, well, let's test lining up more towards the left, and then we'll hit 10 shots and see whether you hit your target. Now let's test closing the face at impact. And then we see, okay, out of those two interventions, which one was best for you? Which one was more comfortable for you? Which one do you feel you could do on the golf course? The act of trying both of those interventions is improving you. It's exploring. It's play. Even if one doesn't work for you, you've still kind of trained something. You've learned something from that. Even with club face, I would say let's explore different ways of doing it. Now, let's try and just close the face at address. Shock horror. I actually do this when I'm missing left. I just open the face at address, then grip. And I'm I've been as low as a +5 doing that. People think, oh my God, isn't that wrong?
Too
Like,
easy.
no, it's not wrong. It's like, yeah. And hey, if you don't like that as an intervention, we have other options as well. We could change the grip. You're missing it right. Let's explore strengthening the grip. See if that works for you. Some people, you strengthen the grip and they respond by holding off the club face because they feel like it's going to go left. So we find this out in the testing.
And just on that, Adam, I think there's so many different ways people react to these type of things, because like for you, that sounds great. And I remember you saying that on one of your podcasts and I was thinking, oh, brilliant, I'm going to try that. But for me, unfortunately, if I was pull hooking it, I was thinking, right, I'm going to open the face a lot more. I end up pull hooking it more for some reason. For some reason, whenever I do that, I don't get it.
Yeah, so an example of this would be, okay, someone's missing it left, and I would say, okay, well, let's explore hitting it more to the right. And their way of doing that is they try and instinctively swing more to the right. So number one, I would say I would use the feedback, right? This is why feedback is important. You could use ball flight, or I have a GC quad, and I would say, well, look what happened in that. Your path went more to the right. And then we explore, okay, well, how can you hit it more to the right? How can you open the face more without sending that path more right? And then we just explore that. Lots of times, for me, the number one intervention is just going through, right, how can we get the club to move through impact correctly? So we do a lot of rehearsals, and we start out with putting swings. If someone can't do it at full speed, we say, right, let's start out. Let's see if you can open the face 3 degrees with a putting swing, and then we start with that. Almost everybody can do that. Complete beginners can do that. Maybe not precisely, but they can do it to a certain extent. Let's do 3 degrees open. Let's do 6 degrees open. Let's do 9 degrees open. Okay, now you have a feel for it. Now let's add a little bit more speed. So that's the idea of just task simplification. It's the same task. We're just taking it down. And again, if someone can't do that instinctively, we may explore technical options. It may be a case of, well, let's see if we can weaken off this grip. That might make it easier for you. So you can explore. Technique can be part of it. But here's the difference. Like, I'm focusing on the task first. It's like the goal is to get the club face more open. The technique is a tool to help us achieve that.